Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge, day number 8. My name is Howard Pinsky, a senior XD evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well. I ate something last night that just isn't agreeing with me, so if I seem a little bit off, I apologize. But a big good morning, afternoon, or evening to everyone joining me live here on Behance, including Richard and Eric and Jack and Thomas and Marissa and Catherine and Abdullah, I think that says up there, and Ariana and everyone else joining me. Let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from. Rob Zilla is in the house. What's up, man? I'm gonna hop straight into this because we're gonna get a little bit fun today. We're gonna get creative. We're gonna do something wacky. It may work, it may not work. I don't know. But let's hop over to my screen to take a look at what's going on. Daily Creative Challenge landing page, behance.net/challenge/XD. Go there, hit the button at the top. We're only 2 days out, today and tomorrow, from this daily challenge, but next week, we're starting a new one with somebody. Do we know who it is? Jesse, can I announce that? Yeah. Okay, Jesse Showalter, I had to get permission. Amazing designer, super energetic guy. He's gonna be hosting next week, which is gonna be really exciting. So, press the big blue register button at the top. Let me break this thing down. So every single day you're gonna receive a challenge. Again, we've been doing this for about 2 weeks now. This set of challenges, coming to an end on tomorrow. Who else is in the house? Chris Cannon's in the house. What's up, Chris? Stop eating chilies. I can never stop eating chilies. Come on, Chris. But yeah, next week, so you're gonna receive a challenge every single day. You can join us in our community chat, powered by Discord, right over here. Here's Discord. Introduce yourself, ask questions about XD, but more importantly, share your work in the current challenge, past challenge, whatever work you're working on, share it in there so you can get feedback and also give feedback if you so choose. I would recommend that because we as designers have to support ourselves, support each other and ourselves sometimes. And we have about 32,000 designers signed up in Discord, so definitely hop in there, it's a good time. And where have we gone so far in these challenges? So we started with repeat grids, auto animate, touched on drag trigger, plugins, component states, voice trigger, hover trigger, and advanced prototyping today. And we're going to be designing a mobile or web experience that tracks home or business utility usage. There's a lot there, but we're gonna have some fun with this. And we're gonna be using advanced prototyping techniques to add animations and interactions. And I just know by the end of this, someone's gonna tell me that none of this could be developed. And you know what? It's possible that that might be the case, but I'm pretty sure I've seen an app just like this, very similar, with the same similar animations, that it can be developed. So if you have the right team, anything is possible. All right, so we're gonna hop over to Adobe XD. This is the template we're gonna be working on day number 8. Again, here's the prompt. Here's what we're gonna focus on, adding animations. There's some inspiration down at the bottom, some resources, but I do wanna dive into things and get designing. So, as always, I'm gonna start by blocking in some elements, and then we're gonna refine, we're gonna duplicate the artboard, we're gonna add some animations. It's gonna be a grand time. So here we go. I'm gonna start by double clicking on the artboard or simply just selecting it. And I want to choose a color for this artboard. It's only gonna be seen a little bit, but here we go. Tim says, possible, sure, but it won't be cheap. That's a very good point, Tim. If you do want some fancy stuff in your designs to be developed, you probably have to pay for it. But that's life, right? So here we go. So I've got lovely background, blue background, but again, not all of it's going to be seen. We're gonna be doing something that I did last week at some point. We're gonna be getting creative with our containers. So I'm gonna grab my rectangle tool, and from about, let's say, right about here all the way down, I'm going to drag out this white box. I'm gonna round out the corners quite a bit. Let's say, 72 pixels, that's a good number. I don't want the corners at the bottom rounded, so I'm gonna hold down my Alt or Option key and just drag those back in. Now for the corner at the top right, I actually want it to kind of swoop up, just to give it a little bit of appeal to it. Utility apps are not very exciting, so I wanna spice it up a touch. So I'm simply going to double click on this rectangle, boop, and I've got these points here. I'm gonna simply grab this point at the right-hand side, and maybe just drag it up. Look at that. Fancy, right? What I can also do is grab this handle and just move it inwards, just like this. I can move this one back in a touch, just so I have a nice swooping curve on the right side over here. And I can experiment that with that until I feel pretty good about it. But you know what? I don't want to spend too much time on this, so I'll leave it right about there. That doesn't look too bad. Of course, I can spend hours on this little tiny curve, but I'm gonna leave it right about there. So, next thing we need some context. What are we actually looking at? So I'm gonna grab my text tool, just type out daily, and I might just do usage, like that. That's a little bit too large, so I'm gonna drop that down, maybe adjust the spacing a little bit. There we go, that looks pretty good. Pop it about there, maybe a little bit bigger. Fancy, perfect. Now on the right-hand side, maybe we're talking about how many gallons of water you've used in a single day. So I'll just duplicate this over. I'll start with 38. If we do have a little bit of time at the end, I'm gonna animate this 38 as like a number counter, but for now we'll just leave it about there. Down below, gallons, right? And this is simple stuff. Hopefully by now in these challenges, you know how to work your text. I'll just leave it about there. Maybe I'll drop the opacity a touch. Not too much, and maybe instead of bold, we might want to go for regular. No, don't want to go for regular. Let's go for, I don't know, what do we, there's a lot of weights here. Medium, sure, why not, right? Perfect, beautiful. It's not great, but it's not bad. But I want to get to some good stuff, right? One more thing, someone says, Kara, our utility company tracks usage down to the hour. It's pretty cool, interesting. That is kind of cool. So right over here, I might want some sort of buttons. And I've been kind of dropping these things in for all of you. You know, what other things can you do on an app like this, right? So I'm dropping these little tidbits where I'm kind of leaving it up to you to decide. Maybe we'll have two little buttons right here. Let me just change the border a little bit, right? Add a little bit of a shadow. I might want to pull in some blue for the shadow. Not a lot of blue, just a little bit of blue, just to give a little bit of color. Bump it down a touch, and then increase the, maybe I don't need a border. Yeah, looks pretty good. All right, right? And then just duplicate this over to the right as well. So you got these two little buttons possibly, or maybe two little categories. I'm gonna leave it up to you. Maybe I'll put a shower icon, a toilet icon, track usage for specific categories or devices, whatever it might be. But I wanna get to some good stuff. Essentially, I want when this application loads or this page loads that, you know, water kind of comes up from the bottom. So we're gonna have some fun. Let me move this over. I wanna start by dragging out a long rectangle, like a nice long rectangle, something like this, right? Let's go ahead and choose the same colors we're using at the top. And of course I don't want, you know, water is very fluid, so I don't want a nice sharp line. I actually want to double click on this, very similar to what we did at the top, but I'm gonna add a few additional points, maybe one over here, maybe one over here. And then, you know, if I drag them around, they're gonna be very sharp, but I want them nice and fluid. So I'm gonna double click on the lines to convert them into curves. I can do the same with the ones over to the sides, right? Now it looks kind of wacky, but if I grab this, let's say this one will be whoop, like that. This one will be whoop, like that. I can just play around with it, just like that. I can move this one a little bit, right? And I can move this one a touch. That looks pretty good, right about there. He makes it look so easy. Thank you, Paige, I appreciate that. And if I'm going too fast for anyone, you can definitely watch this later on, because I only have like 25 minutes to do this. So the replays are available. So now I may want this one on this side, right? Maybe I'll just move this down a touch. Adjust this a little bit, right? Just like that, move this down, just so it's not covering everything. I might also want to move this whole thing down, but I may also want another one. So I'm gonna simply duplicate it, Command and Control D. Then I can double click on this one and make some changes to this wave. So I'll basically just invert what I've done previously, like that. Maybe I'll tweak this a touch, right? There we go. And then for this one, I'm gonna actually move it all the way over to the left. Now you're probably noticing everything's kind of blending in with each other. It's probably not what we want. And you're right, we don't want that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure in my layers panel to select both of those layers. I should probably name them, I should probably group them as well. Let me do that. I'll just group them, say water. So I've got both layers selected and I'm simply going to change the blend mode to multiply. And all of a sudden, we've got this interesting shape at the top, right? Things are looking pretty fancy. So now that we have that done, we've got these two pieces of water that we're using for our animation, we actually need the starting point, because sometimes it makes sense to work backwards. So we have our ending point. We now need a starting point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate this artboard over to the left. I'm actually gonna move this pretty far away so we have some room to edit. I'm gonna dive in here. My voice is going. I'm losing my voice, people. I need some water, apparently. Excuse me. So what we're gonna do now is it's okay, Paco, I'm good. We're going to start by defining the beginning point. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna start by moving these layers down. So I'm just gonna move them down like this, right? And I'm gonna grab the layer that's on top, or at least to the left. I'm gonna move it over to the right, grab the other one and move it to the left. But doing just that is gonna make them go like this, right? And it might look kind of fancy, as Kara is saying, but we want it to look really fancy. So I'm gonna double click and I'm going to basically invert it again. So each one I'm gonna do this like that. Maybe I'll invert this one and move this one around a little bit. Maybe I'll make it a nice big wave at the bottom and the right, just like that. Now I'm gonna grab the one that we just moved this way, change that a little bit, right? Hopefully you're seeing where this is going. And once this animates, it's gonna look really cool. I hope, maybe. Nathan's saying, would this challenge touch on nested component hovers? It will not. Tomorrow we might touch on a little bit of components, but today will not. So we've got basically our first two states. We've got our beginning and we have our end, right? So now what's left? Well, now we're going to start animating this thing. And because Auto Animate and XD make it so simple, there's really not much we have to do. We're gonna hop into prototype mode at the top. And we essentially want, when this screen loads, this to take place almost instantly. So we want to use a time trigger. So I have my first artboard selected. I'm going to grab the blue handle over to the right and simply drag it over to the second artboard. And if you never used a time trigger before, it's good to note that the time trigger is only available on an artboard level. So if you have an individual object selected, you're not gonna see that option. So I've dragged the handle from the artboard, number 1 to number 2. We're gonna make sure that time is selected over here to the right in the properties inspector. We'll add a little bit of a delay, because if we had 0 delay, it would just automatically go. We might miss some of it. So we'll add about 0.6 seconds. We're gonna choose auto animate because we wanna make sure that XD notices the differences between the two artboards and animates it, right? We have the destination already set. We're gonna do, let's say, in and out for the easing options. We can always change that later on and experiment. And we want a nice long duration. Now I will note that ideally when you are creating an actual application, you probably don't want 5-second animations, but just for the sake of this, to show you how cool this is, hopefully, we're gonna go with 5 seconds. So, and that's all we gotta do. Just gotta wire it up, choose your options over to the right, and then hopefully, if all goes well, it's gonna look fancy. So I'm gonna select the first artboard, press play at the top. Hello, I lost focus. Or did I have that open already? Where is my play button? Doesn't work. Oh, there it is. And there we go, look at that, woo! That's weird, I think I ran into a bug. I can't press the play button at the top, unless I have it open somewhere else. Do I have it open somewhere else? I do not. I ran into a bug, I think. Well, there we go. You can also access your prototype with your command key and then return, and that'll launch it. So here we go, there it goes, look, woo, look at that. So you have this really cool water animation, all really by editing 2 rectangles and changing some paths, which is super cool. Now, before we wrap things up, I do want, because we do have a little bit of time, I do want to also animate the gallons at the top, right? So in that case, I'm going to delete this one over here, and I'm just gonna work on this one. So in this case, maybe I want like a number counter going from maybe 30 gallons or 31 gallons up to 38. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to delete the 8, just work on a separate one, just over here. This will be 1, right? Make it nice and close. And I actually want to add all the numbers within this number counter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And if I move this over, you're probably seeing what I'm working with. And I can also squeeze these numbers in just a little bit in the properties inspector over to the right. That looks pretty fancy. Now, of course, we don't want all these numbers to be visible immediately. So that's kind of where masks come into play. And tomorrow we're going to be playing a lot with masks. But just to kind of give you an idea of what we're working with, what I want to do essentially is create a shape that will house these elements and only show certain things. So I'm going to, someone says bubbles. Yeah, I should add bubbles if I have time after this. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and simply draw out a mask, a shape over top of the area that I want seen at all times. In this case, just the number at the top. So with that done, I can select, let me just name this mask. I can select the mask shape and also select the text layer that contains the numbers in that counter. And I have both of those selected, and then under the object menu, I'm gonna go down to mask with shape. There's also a keyboard shortcut over to the right. I'm gonna do that, and it's essentially going to hide everything outside of that shape. So this is going to act as our starting point. Now what I want to make sure to do so that all the layer names are the same and everything's the same, I'm simply going to copy all of these layers, copy, and boop, paste them on the second artboard. And just like we did before, we just have to define the starting point and the ending point. So I'm going to double click into this mask, make sure that that number counter is selected, and just move it up to, let's say, R8. Now I am noticing that we have a little bit of cutoff, so all I have to really do is just grab the mask, enlarge it a touch, just like that, and I'll make sure to do the exact same thing on the first artboard, because you want to make sure that any changes you make on one that you want consistent amongst both are changed on the other artboard as well. So Julie's asking, how do you hand over the animations to developers? So I knew that question was going to come up. So in this case, this would be a little bit of a different situation, but depending on the development team, you can definitely export these as SVGs so that they can basically use the before and the after states and animate those if they know what they're doing. Or if they're a really good development team, they can recreate these from scratch. And I have seen applications with very similar animations. So it can definitely be done if you have the right developers. But we are going to be working on, the XD team is going to be working on some additional features this year, next year, the year after probably, that will make that handoff quite a bit better. So we've done the number counter, right? We have our starting point over here, we have our ending point, and all we really did is we masked that second number and then moved the number stack up a little bit. And then we've already gone through in prototype mode and wired this up. So all we have to do now is preview it. So again, Command and Control and return, or you can press the play button at the top. Again, I don't know why that's not letting me. I've never seen that before, but we're gonna run with this. Command and Control, return. There we go. And you're noticing as the animation kicks off, the number counter at the top is also going up. Now, we still have some time. I didn't expect to get through all of this, but Robzilla in there asks about bubbles. We should create some bubbles. So here we go. On the first artboard, I'm gonna make sure I'm in the water group. Of course, you don't have to be in the water group, but to keep everything nice and simple and the same, I'm gonna add a nice rectangle, or an ellipse actually. So I'm gonna press the E key on my keyboard, draw out, let's say, one big bubble here, or a little bit bigger. I might want to change the blend mode to either overlay or soft light possibly. Soft light looks pretty good. And I'll start this bubble, let's say down here. I'll just name this bubble 1. We're gonna have a lot of bubbles because we have some time, right? Chris says, save the file, Howard, and should fix it. Save. Didn't fix it. I probably have to reopen the file, but I'm not gonna deal with that. So I've got my first bubble down here. I'm gonna copy it, go into the second artboard, make sure it's in the same water group, paste it, and maybe I'll just put the bubble up here, possibly. And I'll make sure to drop the opacity because as the bubble rises, it's probably gonna fade out a little bit. Perfect. So that's one bubble. Should we do some more? Let's do some more. So I'm gonna go to the first artboard again, grab that bubble. Maybe I'll duplicate one over here. This will be a nice small bubble. Maybe I'll put this one all the way down here so that there's a little bit of difference as the bubble rises. And I'll just name this bubble 2, bubble, bubble, bubble. Pop it in here. Possibly put it around, maybe it'll fade out about here, right? And let's do one more. One more bubble somewhere, I don't know, right about here. Right? Maybe I'll put it like really farther down. Whoops. All the way down here. Copy, and I'll pop it over here. I didn't name that one. Let me go ahead and name this bubble 3. Drop the opacity, right? Hop in here, make sure to name. Where'd that bubble go? Is that the one? Yeah, that's the bubble. All right, so we've got some bubbles. I hope you're happy, Rob. Is Rob still here? Did he? Oh, there he is. He's still here. Okay, I thought he made a suggestion and then ran away. So we've got some bubbles, and let's see how this works. Here we go. Yes, look at those bubbles. That was awesome. This is a great challenge. Probably not super developer friendly, but we're having some fun, right? So there we go. We've done a lot so far. All this in 20 minutes. That was pretty impressive. Thank you, Paco. So let's actually figure out what we're gonna do with these little boxes. So maybe I'll hop over to my plugins panel, and maybe for this one, we might want a shower head. So I'll pop this shower head in here, make it a little bit larger. Just sample this color over here, right? And maybe for this box, we might want to do a toilet. And by the way, if you want to get some extra tips and tricks on plugins, I think on Friday of last week, possibly, we covered a bunch of different plugins to use in the challenge. So definitely go back and check those out. I'll make this toilet a little bit larger. Make sure it lines up really nicely. Sample, there we go. And of course, you know, I'm gonna leave it up to you to figure out what this is. Is it like usage of the shower and the toilet? I don't know what it could be. So Jack says, now you can definitely make that into an SVG animation. Yeah, I know Jack does a lot of SVG animation, so yeah, talk to Jack. I'm gonna copy these. Maybe I'll make sure to group these and just call them icons, and copy, paste them over here, and make sure everything looks pretty good. Looks good. Let's go ahead and make a few tweaks. Move this down a touch, move this down a touch, and let's take a look at this one more time. I love those bubbles. That was a great idea, Rob. Thank you. And that's it. That's gonna pretty much wrap it up. We did a lot in 20 minutes, more than I expected. So this was fun. I definitely encourage all of you to go crazy with this, do something completely different, maybe whether it's, you know, water or electricity or what other kind of utilities do you use? Gas, I don't know, electric cars, things like that. Have fun with it. Post your work on Discord, post your work on Twitter, post your work everywhere on Behance using the keyword XD Daily Challenge. And that's gonna basically do it for me for today. Stick around for tomorrow. I'll be back talking a lot about masks and animation and things like that to wrap up the XD Daily Creative Challenge, at least for this time. New one coming on Tuesday of next week. Monday's a holiday, so we will not be here. And then tomorrow after my challenge, I'm running an XD Masterclass. So I'll be talking a lot about micro animations, doing some really cool stuff using my States UI kit. So thanks again, everyone. Cheryl and Richard and Joe and Redom and Chris and Jack and Kara and Rob for the bubbles suggestion. I'm gonna be posting this at some point on Dribbble. So thanks again, everyone, and I'll see you all tomorrow.